you always want to know what's out there for you and your options as a SPD tech. So those were two of the main ones that I kind of focused on. And, I kind of like to think about it as a CE gives you an hour of your time, but it also, there's something worth taking back to your department as well from any of the educational sessions that you can complete.
Rising above the buzz of ultrasonic cleaners and the clanking of stainless steel are the ideas and voices that are changing an industry. You're listening to the Beyond Clean podcast, the central nexus for the people, processes, and products that are improving our sterile processing world. Each week, we speak with frontline technicians, CEOs, engineers, and entrepreneurs with a common goal: to help you fight dirty, every instrument, every time. Whether you're tuning in for education or inspiration, we're glad you did. Now turn on those washers and turn up the volume. It's time to go beyond clean.
All right, Clean Freaks, welcome back to another episode of the Beyond Clean podcast. You're listening to season 33, Built Different, a season dedicated to the training and education of sterile processing technicians. I'm your host, Bobby Parker, and joining me for episode 8 here is our co-host for the season, Jason Minutillo. Jason, welcome back to the studio.
Thanks, Bobby. Super excited to hear from Chelsea and more importantly, just kind of, I wouldn't say the secret sauce. That's not the right word or the right words, but just hearing how it's CEs are not just built. I mean, they have to go through some sort of rigorous process. So I'm excited to hear a little bit about that. Because I mean, personally, I thought anybody could do it, but technically can, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah, that's true. So we get a little bit of a peek behind the curtain today, and I'm excited for this particular guest because we know Chelsea good and well. Our guest is our very own marketing specialist at Healthcare HQ. So she's got some reps in for CE management and approval. So we'd love to share with you today how CE programs in particular can become a key part of building well-educated, well-equipped technicians in your department. We'll be right back with Chelsea Schmitz after this.
From the studios of Healthcare HQ, you're listening to Beyond Clean, the global voice of sterile processing.
And joining us now in studio is Chelsea Schmitz, the marketing specialist at Healthcare HQ Media, joining us on this side of the mic. Chelsea, good to see you again, but nice to have you in studio.
Hey, Bobby. Yeah, thanks for the invite. I'm really happy to be here today.
Of course. Now, Chelsea, we start these episodes out always giving people an opportunity to get to know somebody and hear a little bit of their background. I know a bit more about you just because we get to talk every week over at Healthcare HQ, but I'm super excited to give people an opportunity to get to know you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you've been doing in the industry, maybe what you do at Healthcare HQ?
Yeah, so I've been working on the Healthcare HQ team for almost 6 years now. So my role primarily is managing a lot of our brand's educational content, our social media feeds, virtual events, podcasts. So if you've attended a virtual event, chances are I've set everything up for you to enjoy and consume all the content. And for podcasts, I'm doing everything behind the scenes to help get you those CEs. So that's kind of a little bit about what I do. Kind of kicking it back to how I started in the industry. I started with absolutely no experience. I walked into a sterile processing department, not even knowing the layout of a department. I started at a same-day surgery center here in Minneapolis, where I'm home-based. My facility does about 70 cases a day. We did everything from total knees to cataracts, so kind of a little bit of everything in a same-day surgery center. So I was immersed in it from day one. And like I said, had no experience. So all of my knowledge in the industry just comes from on the job training and the CE programs that I've participated in for my recertifications.
Yeah, well, that's the story of most of us in SPD. I'm curious, Chels, what was it that interested you in sterile processing first? You said you started with no experience and got started at that surgery center. Did you just find a job posting and thought it sounded curious, or did you know somebody? How'd you find it?
So I actually knew somebody, and at the time I was working at an ENT clinic, and at that time, we were having to have our scopes reprocessed by the local sterile processing department at the hospital that was connected to our clinic. And so I just started building relationships with the sterile processing techs and as well as the manager, just because I was working with them so closely every day. And when the same day surgery center that was opening at that time, the manager of the department kind of heard about me through the sterile processing manager, and he was like, "Oh, let's take her." So that's kind of how I got into sterile processing, was through relationships that I've built.
Yeah, it often goes that way. And just to carry the story one notch further, Chels, the way that we ended up getting connected through Beyond Clean was one of those relationship stories as well. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I actually got connected with the team through Lindsay. She came into our department to get hours for her certification, and I met her and we just hit it off right away. We just stayed in touch after she completed her hours, and when she was working with Beyond Clean and was offering a intern for marketing, I immediately messaged her and I was like, "Hey, I would love to do this." And she was like, "You're hired." So that's how I got connected with the team.
Yeah, Chels, we all miss Lindsay tremendously. For those who don't know Lindsay Brown, I guess I would encourage you to look on the Beyond Clean website for Lindsay Brown and listen to her and some of her passion. Lynn sadly passed away earlier this year, and she was such a positive impact and light for so many in the industry. Just the kind of person who treated just about everybody like they were her best friend, and was an inspiration of hope for a lot of people, and just a positive connection for so many in the industry. I think it's cool, Chels, that even your story and you getting to share your gifts around marketing with the industry and graphic design with the industry. It's just another testament of Lynn's impact out there and the difference that she was able to make in the sterile processing world. Super cool story. Well, so Chels, when you introduced yourself as the things that you do at Healthcare HQ, I'll say that you were being a bit humble and trying to keep that job description short. If any of you have had somebody at work that like, this is the person you ask when everything's going wrong, like Chels is kind of that for me. Also, if you've ever emailed Beyond Clean with a question before, particularly if it's related to CEs or to just the website or things like that, Chels is likely the person on the other end of that email address. And so you've tied together a lot of administrative things for Beyond Clean in a helpful way, and then also have just a really creative eye for marketing and graphic design. One of the reasons that I wanted to invite you onto our episode for this season, we've been talking through competencies and education, which is something we care an awful lot about at Beyond Clean. And I wanted us to end this season talking a little bit about continuing education. I couldn't think of anybody better suited to have this conversation with about CE credits and helping technicians grow in just their education than you, Chels, because you exist in kind of the backdrop of this Beyond Clean CE super engine that we just keep throwing CEs out into the void. So wanted to give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about what happens on the backside of the curtain when it comes to CE programs, like where they come from, how they get made, how do we keep up with them, and why do we keep sending more of them out into the void. So if you could get us started here kind of at the top of the call and orient us to how CEs work, could you walk us through that process? Like what are continuing education credits, and how does somebody talking on the internet turn into CE approved educational material for sterile processing?
Yeah, so I'll say that the CE approval process starts long before someone receives their actual certificate, participates in any of the educational sessions here. First thing that we need to do is clearly define what the program that we want to educate our audience is, who it's intended for, and what the participants will take away from the session that they participate in. So once we've identified that, then the next steps are gathering the right supporting information for the CE application. So that can include learning objectives that are measurable and aligned with the topic that we will be presenting on, speaker info, presentation duration, and a big part of it is also the supporting documents. So in this case, the quiz that people will take after any podcast episode or virtual event. So those are the main things that go into doing the CE application process.
Right. So we collect all this information, we put it together and submit it for CE approval. Who are the organizations that do continuing education credits for sterile processing? And does anything go with sterile processing credits, or are there some guidelines that you're looking at to determine, what's a CE program and what maybe isn't one?
We submit through HSPA and CDSPD as the primary sterile processing accreditation bodies. And to answer your question about what is approved and what can't be approved, we try to stay away from any promotional based conversations or any sales type conversations. We like to do more relatable educational content. And the goal is to have the attendee walk away with information that they can take back to their department.
So I'm going to jump in here, Chelsea. Just, again, throw a number out there. It doesn't have to be perfect, but approximately how many CEs have you, applied for in your tenure, and how many have gotten approved? And then what has that taught you in terms of, is volume better, or is it quality, or is it quantity? What is that?
Well, I did look it up for this interview, and I would say I have roughly sent in 500 applications for CE approval, which is crazy to think that there is that many free educational sessions out there in the industry today.
Yeah, I was doing some of the napkin math as well, Chels. If you think about it, like how many CE approved podcasts we put out and conferences and webinars, and you just multiply that over 6 years. Yeah, I figured it was somewhere around there. It is wild to think. I mean, Beyond Clean has historically had one of the larger CE libraries out there for free on the internet. So yeah, you think about how much upkeep goes into like managing not only the approval request for 500 CEs, but kind of the ongoing maintenance of those programs. So talk us through that second bit. If a company or an individual has pulled together this idea, they've gone through the steps that you described, which was to have some learning objectives. They've got a description of what this is going to be teaching. They've identified how it'll be delivered, how long it's going to take, and they've submitted some supporting documents like a slide deck or something like that. And they've got a CE approval. Like, what has to happen after that? Like, how does the CE get to the technicians, and what kind of maintenance is required on the backside to keep up one of these programs?
Yeah, so approval is only one part of the process. The rest of it is managing everything on the back end. So once we have everything approved, then we switch gears to making sure that we have all of the quizzes set up appropriately and ready for distribution. We make sure that all of the certificates that are accompanied with these educational programs have the right information on them, which would be the attendee's name, the session, what date they completed it, and also we need to make sure that the approval codes are on there. That is the big thing that the accreditations want to see when people submit, is that they have the appropriate approval code.
Right. That's kind of their stamp of saying that, yep, we've already looked at this. And that way they don't have to have somebody in the room watching the presentation, happen every single time. That's kind of a pre-approval thing. Well, Chels, so that covers kind of us at the definition level here, just describing how CE programs work. I hope that's helpful for any technicians who maybe are new to the industry, haven't got that certification yet. Sounds a little daunting to get your CEs. There's an obscene amount of free ones out on the internet. If you participate in those, collect your certificates, you can get your CE approvals. And there are hardworking folks like Chelsea making sure that those CE certificates make it to the right place with the right information on it. But what makes you a unique podcast guest for this topic, Chels, is not only that you have probably more experience than any other CE application submitter in the industry, but also you came from sterile processing yourself. You're a certified sterile processing technician. You've consumed some of these programs and kind of gone through the process as a technician. I'm curious, based on kind of your experience, having seen a lot of CE programs, both as a technician and then gone through some of the, the conferences at Beyond Clean and whatnot. What do you think sets apart a really good CE program from one that maybe snuck through the CE approval and has an application code, but might not add as much value?
Yeah, honestly, I think a great CE session is relatable to people and it addresses real problems that they're seeing day to day in their departments. I know personally, when I was searching for educational programs to complete for my certifications, I was always drawn to the sessions that either addressed common challenges that I was facing in my department or any like professional development ones, just because you always want to know what's out there for you and your options as a SPD tech. So those were two of the main ones that I kind of focused on. And, I kind of like to think about it as a CE gives you an hour of your time, but it also, there's something worth taking back to your department as well from any of the educational sessions that you can complete.
Yeah, for sure. Jason, same question to you, man. You've been in this industry for a little while, so you've, I'm sure, consumed a CE program or two. What makes one stand out as being particularly valuable?
Well, I think just Chelsea just completely nailed it. I always kind of was not happy about seeing the ones that was like, oh yeah, just check a box, good to go. If you didn't bring value back to you as the tech and then something that you could apply or teach somebody else in the department, it wasn't worth my time, frankly. So I was always looking for the ones that was like, coming up cutting edge. Maybe it was, something came up about, I go back to one of my first ones around, scope reprocessing. And it was like, oh, wow, that really needed to know that at that moment in time because it was pertinent at that moment in time. And I can then take it back and use it for education. I can use that for maybe I need to change a practice. Maybe I need to change a policy, a standard operating procedure. So yeah, that's the key is it something that's pertinent? And then can it actually help motivate change in an organization or a department?
Yeah, for sure. I'll add to both of those really good lists because you're right. There are some really tremendous CE programs out there that are timely, that are relatable, that add a lot of value and can, potentially change the way a department is run and save a patient's life. Also thinking about CE programs as, they genuinely just at base level should teach something. If you were going to be requesting CE approval for a program, like it shouldn't just be a quiz or just an activity that's like sterile processing adjacent, but should add some knowledge. Like I'm aware of the irony and thinking in the back of my mind, like we're going to be requesting this episode for CE approval. So like, are we adding enough value about sterile processing? But I think we are. Like we want to see folks adding more good education out there in the industry. And it's not some corporation level access to be able to do that. Like anybody who has some good research based sterile processing content that they want to share with the industry could request CE approval for it, manage it themselves, and deliver it through an organization. Or maybe if you're not going to do that as an individual, maybe you do that through some conference sessions. Go to your local HSPA chapter and do a speaker abstract. And if that gets selected, they're likely to handle all of the CE program application and certificates piece of it for you. And you just get to be the content guy. But we really want more technicians inspired, trying to help this industry grow and elevate through good CE programs. And yeah, I think a good CE program is one that genuinely does that. It communicates information that's going to help people grow. Even if that takes an odd form, Chels, I'm thinking of all the really weird things that we've done Beyond Clean for CE approval. We've done some CE approved books. We did a CE approved murder mystery dinner party one time. It doesn't have to conform to a particular way of delivering the content, but does need to be valuable in those ways.
Didn't we even have coffee CE approved?
Yeah. No, we did an episode around a coffee release, and this isn't a Beyond Clean commercial, so forgive me for going on and on about the things that we've done, because I've seen some really creative stuff from other organizations as well. I don't know if either of you guys made it to the breakout room at HSPA this year that was put on as a session during the pre-conference. I thought that was a really cool idea and a good way to talk through some educational matters, like work on critical thinking and problem solving skills in a way that you can't get when you're just clicking through a PowerPoint from a stage. I love that kind of thing.
No, I think that's a good call out, Bobby. And like I said, it's how do you add value, right? And how do you continue that? So I actually have a question for the both of you. So what advice do you have for, SPD technicians and leaders, and how do they utilize a CEU program to further grow their teams?
Yeah, I think as leaders, they can encourage and support their technicians to participate in the CE offerings that are out there. I think they could encourage their technicians to seek any sessions that would meet their goals or interests that the techs can help improve their skill sets on. I also think it would be a good thing for leaders to also encourage their teams to discuss the education that they're participating in the department, to bring back the education and talk about what they've learned and how they could adjust their workflows based on some of those takeaways.
Yeah, Chels, we've seen some leaders do that in a really effective way. I love when I see out on LinkedIn, somebody have their education board on there and they're assigning the technicians to listen to a particular podcast or read through a certification manual as just part of their organic training. So leaders really can use these, this CE certificate requirement that the technicians need to do. You can strategically use that in your department to help shape and grow your technicians in the area that you want. Now, you're not the arbiter and controller of their certification. So perhaps you can't require them to have to do these and not those, but making some suggestions and assignments about some really valuable CEs that you think would be important for your team and assigning those. I feel like that's a win-win for everybody. If they get a little bit of clock time to work on their CEs and the leader gets to influence the type of education that their technicians are using to grow in their program, in their certification, I think that's top notch. I also will just add, Jason, as a former technician who, I'm not known for my forward thinking skills. I'm a bit of a procrastinator, and I'm sure everybody knows where I'm going with this, but there definitely were some years where it's okay, I've got 3 days to do a whole year's worth of certifications. And when you put yourself in that situation, you are setting yourself to have to live under the mindset of, I need to get the ones that are the lowest bar to entry. How can I get through these CE programs as as quickly as I can. And man, even though that meets the letter of the law, it really guts the spirit of the law, because you can't grow and learn in that environment. So I guess my exhortation would be spread it out, man. Like try to do one a month, and it really gives you the time to be choosy about what's the most valuable and not what gives you the most credits for the least squeeze of the lemon.
Well, and it's funny you say that because we've been talking about that pretty much all season, right? Like, don't procrastinate on your competencies. How do you incentivize? How do you, gamify it? It was one of our podcast, titles, right? So to that point, that's, I think, again, having those CEs that are actually adding value to the department, to the tech, and actually providing, again, maybe it's appropriate, maybe it's, timely, but is it actually going to change process? Is it going to change the tech itself or themselves in terms of, are they going to change their practice to become better?
Yeah, I agree. So as we are wrapping this thing to a close, I want to ask you all, as you look out at the industry, are there any topics that you think we need more presentations on today? I know like whatever's current in the industry going on is always valuable, but are there any topics that you think, man, we could really use some more CE programs out there around this topic? I ask because we've got a lot of technicians, a lot of speakers, a lot of leaders, and also a lot of vendors who listen into this show and are wondering, like, what should I study and share with the industry? Anything you want to throw out into the void here?
Go for it, Chelsea. Ladies first.
Bobby, I think that's a great question. And I think here at Beyond Clean, we do a great job at doing a variety of topics, and we listen to what our audience is asking for. So it's hard to really pinpoint a specific topic of what could we see more of. But one thing that kind of stood out to me is maybe just some more real world case studies about like what went wrong, how it was discovered, how it could be prevented and solved. I'm not sure how many of those are out in the industry, but I think something like that would be very valuable for people to participate in.
Yeah, I agree with that. That podcast series we did around black specks and water quality, we got a ton of feedback in there, and it's because it's an issue that everybody's dealing with. So when you hear a case study of how somebody else solved that problem, like that really does make a difference for folks. Yeah, well said.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that, Chelsea. I would say the only other thing that I often find is, again, we all hear the word ANSI, and it's amazing how many frontline staff have never picked up that document, whether it's the 79 document, the 91 document, the 58, and there's others as well, right? But the main three that usually affect our departments, it's amazing. And I don't know what the disconnect is. I can tell you, like I said, we've talked previously in other podcasts in this season of like, how do you get the front line to read that document? How do you make it bite-sized? And I've often, kind of pondered that and pontificated on that of, okay, how do we get frontline staff member Johnny to pick up the document, review it, and then bring back what he's kind of learned? Because oftentimes they know what they're supposed to do because that's what they've been told to do versus why am I doing this? And that's where the rubber meets the road in terms of elevating from just frontline tech, which is really good with instrumentation and reprocessing, to I know how to lead a team. Again, those are soft skills that all have to be applied, but knowing the why behind the operation to get to that next level of leadership. And that's, again, my leadership is showing a little bit there, Bobby. Sorry. But that's what we're trying to do in our region.
Yeah, you're on it, man. I remember working in a department where, the manager often said, like, Amy says this, or according to Amy, and somebody asked the question, like, who is Amy and why does she get to say what we're doing in our department? So, like, I get it. It's something that's a part of our language, but how much is it a part of the organic life? If there's a department out there, if you're a leader that has, an Amy Standards book club for your technicians and you're just like crunching through it on a month-to-month basis, and that's like giving life to your department, definitely reach out to us. We want to talk to you because, trying to figure out how to make that part of the daily life is a challenge. So, yeah.
No, that's like I said, that's what we're doing in our region right now. Connie's leading that charge as an example. And our first guest in the podcast, she's taking the 79 document and going chunk by chunk, month by month in our monthly newsletter. And that's getting to the front line.
Yeah, man. Super cool. Well, Chelsea, thanks again for joining us for this conversation around CEs. If you're listening in, I would encourage you to get connected with Chelsea Schmitz out there on LinkedIn and continue this conversation if you have any CE related questions, or if you are one of the listeners to the show and you want to provide some of that feedback. We really do listen, and most of that comes through Chelsea of like, hey, Beyond Clean really needs to talk about this. We're trying to get this problem solved in our department. So definitely connect with her out on LinkedIn. Chels, great job on the interview, and thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. It was fun. Always a pleasure.
Definitely, Chelsea.
And that was Chelsea Schmitz, marketing specialist here at Healthcare HQ Media, talking us through the behind the scenes workings of CE management. Jason, it was interesting to me joining this team and kind of being more aware of what goes into making a CE program. I both was interested to see that maybe it's not quite as mysterious as I thought. Like, anybody really can do it. But I also had my eyes open to how much work it is to keep up like that volume of CE. So I'm super thankful for somebody like Chelsea, who's keeping us honest, making sure that those resubmittals are on time and that the CE certificates are well managed. I'm curious here at the end, we didn't get the opportunity to talk about what's next. What do you think is the future of CE credits for this industry?
Well, I mean, we kind of alluded to it a little bit, saying, what is a good CE program and how is it being utilized? I'm hoping that people will hear, don't just have, team members collect CEs just to keep certification, actually utilize it to change practice, change maybe it's your department practice, maybe it's the individual practice, but share it, get it across. I think oftentimes we think this is an individual sport versus a team sport when it comes to certification. And so, it is an individual sport in terms of you maintaining your own certification, but that's where, what did you learn from those CEs that could be utilized to make better processes, protect your patients better, all that. So I think that will be very curious, or I'm very curious to see, I should say, where that goes and seeing somebody actually kind of drive that a little bit more and more, and solidify that. Again, not everyone's doing that. The really good leaders are. Again, maybe you're just starting out as a good leader. That's a great way to kind of, again, get the engagement at the team level to change practice. It's not you saying it, it's somebody from within the department that learned something and now you can make some changes.
Yeah, man, that is a cultural shift for a lot of departments, but I see the value. I think that would be tremendous. From a technology perspective about CE programs and how they're changing, I mean, we're already seeing a little bit of how these credits are being added. There are some organizations where they're just managing it without certificates at all. You get your attendance recorded and then it gets uploaded to a portal and you're good to go. I imagine we're going to see more and more of that kind of thing. And also just a call back to the collegiate level education episode that we had. This may be another opportunity to think about and dream about, like, what would it look like for the industry to really elevate beyond a collection of a handful of 12 hours of education in a year is not a whole lot, Jason. Just talking through SPD, like, what would it look like for the industry to really to elevate the requirements and have its stake in research and science and good current research studies being done and studied by technicians out there. Definitely a lot of room for growth. And I think we are continuing to see more and more of the industry take hold of that, golden age of sterile processing. I'm saying, I think it's becoming more and more of an important industry in the eyes of both the public, surveyors, and in technicians. Well, Jason, Yeah, we are here at the end of 8 episodes about building better sterile processing technicians, education, training, competencies, the whole gamut. I've really enjoyed this ride. Thanks for sharing your insights, your stories, particularly the ones around leadership, which I can tell is kind of your passion project out there in Colorado. Like, it's added a lot of value, and I want to say thanks. A special thanks to you for joining us as co-host this season.
Well, I appreciate the thought of inviting me, Bobby, because I've really enjoyed it. I hope that I have the opportunity, future state, to be able to join you guys in any of the things that you have going on as well. So don't forget about me.
For sure, man. We won't. Well, that's going to do it for this season of the Beyond Clean podcast. Before we get started again, about a month from now, we'll, of course, have some great re-releases coming for you each Monday. Until then, until we talk to you again next time, on behalf of Jason, myself, and the whole team here at Beyond Clean, keep fighting dirty. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Beyond Clean. As a reminder, you can help support us by subscribing to Beyond Clean on your favorite podcast app, or by downloading the smartphone app on iPhone or Android. Simply search for Beyond Clean in the App Store or Google Play. The best thing about downloading the smartphone app is that you can access bonus content for certain episodes and view episodes in certain categories, like articles on the go and vendor spotlights. Are you following us on LinkedIn or Facebook yet? If you are and you love an episode or post, then let your social network know about it. Like, comment, or share our posts along with your thoughts and keep the conversation going. If you have any topics or guests that you would like to recommend for a future episode, just send us an email to info@beyondclean.net. We look forward to hearing from you.